Newcomer, New Me. When you are developing a career in Canada, there's something you need to have in mind. It's not who you know, but who knows you. Networking is extremely important, and you need to make yourself visible, especially if you are coming to a new country and you don't have your own network that will help you to get into the Canadian market. So stay tuned, because today networking will be our topic in Newcomer, New Me. We are bringing to the show two networking specialists. Our first guest, Jennifer Catalo, she is account director on LinkedIn, where she is responsible for different applications that support recruiters to connect and choose the right candidates they need. And we are also talking to Mauricio Ospina. He's a very talented professional with more than 20 years in Canada. He has been nominated for the Top 25 Canadian Immigrant Awards 2021, and he is one of Ontario's most outstanding immigrants. And he also leads a program named the 10 Most Influential Hispanic Canadians, with winners all across Canada. We are starting this episode with Jennifer Catalo. Jennifer, welcome to Newcomer, New Me.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. Jennifer, I want to start this interview with a very general question, but I think it's a very important one. Why is it so important to do networking in Canada?
Okay, so LinkedIn essentially writes this workplace learning report every year, and they identified professional skills as foundational to every employee's success, regardless of their role. Things like creativity, leadership, communication, and in particular networking are all on the rise and are in-demand skills. So more than 70% of professionals across the board get hired, particularly in North America, at companies where they already have a connection. And so on LinkedIn, applicants who are referred from within a company by a current employee are almost 9 to 10 times more likely to get hired. So in other words, networking impacts opportunity. LinkedIn actually identified 3 key factors that contribute to this. So what they've looked at is referred to as the network gap. So where you grow up, a LinkedIn member in a particular area code with a medium income over, let's say, $100,000 is nearly 3 times more likely to have a stronger network. Where someone went to school, a member who went to like a top ranking school is almost 2 times more likely to have a strong network. And then where you work, people who work at, let's say, top ranking companies are, again, almost 2 times more likely to have a really strong network. And what they've noticed, or at least identified in terms of the network gap, is that the reality is where you grow up, where you go to school, where you work, gives you a kind of an advantage in gaining access to opportunity. So considering networking can essentially impact opportunity, it only serves you to explore skills and develop networking skills and other strategies, of course, for building employment opportunities for yourself.
Absolutely. Jennifer, and actually such a great platform to do networking in Canada. I would say it's absolutely essential if you wanna, right? Like if you wanna find a place in the Canadian workplace, you need to be on LinkedIn. So let's talk about that, because for many immigrants, and I mean, I'm coming about my experience in Mexico, we don't use LinkedIn that much. So let's talk about the importance of using LinkedIn for networking here in Canada.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone. I mean, even I'll do a little bit, indulge me for a moment. I'll do a little bit of a story. So, for me, networking was incredibly influenced by my father and my parents in general, who are immigrants. So I saw the concept of networking through my dad's eyes. I remember one morning he had asked me to go out for a drive, And, I was thrilled. I got to go with my dad for a car ride. We would stop at a local, donut shop, and I knew it was going to be an adventure. And like an hour and a half into this drive, we end up in this place that I'd never seen before, people wearing different clothes that I'd never seen before, people, in carts with horse-drawn carriages. And my dad drove up to this house, knocked on the door, asked me to grab a box out of the trunk. And I remember I was young and I thought, what are we doing here? Who is this? And he proceeded to knock on the door, and this gentleman answered the door. All I remember is he had this really long beard. And they proceeded to have a conversation. My dad introduced himself. He introduced me. I don't remember a lot about the conversation. I just remember giving this box to this gentleman. And it was interesting when I got back into the car, I said to my dad, like, what is this place? What are we doing here? And he's like, oh, this is an Amish community. And I was like, oh, do you know this guy? And he's like, no, I'm looking for somewhere to go hunting. And I was going to knock on all of these doors and make friends and give them some things that, my mom had baked, and some sauce and what have you, and create relationships. And, that relationship has continued to this day, like 30 years later. So for me, networking has always been about reciprocity. And I think LinkedIn provides an incredible space to do that, because the fact is it's the biggest professional network. You have over 700 million members. It's ripe with opportunity to connect with people you wouldn't otherwise connect with. Almost every recruiter is on LinkedIn. A majority of hiring managers across top tier organizations are on LinkedIn. So I think you do a disadvantage to yourself by not at least trying LinkedIn and getting on there to explore and be curious. So, for me, networking, in a sense, is essential on LinkedIn, but you need to come at it from a perspective that resonates with you. So for me, networking is all about, offering value in some way. So giving a person a reason to continue to communicate with me and to connect with me. If someone feels used from the beginning, you're trying to get a job from them, or you're trying to get, a connection out of them, or you're trying to get a recommendation out of them. Anyone who just feels used at the beginning, they're not going to want to continue to build a relationship. I mean, that's just my personal experience. So I always come from with the lens of seeing my father kind of build relationships, give something, and see what happens, be curious about other people. So when you can really be strategic on LinkedIn and come up with some innovative ways to approach networking, that is based on reciprocity, based on giving, that I think nurtures more profound, more long-term relationships than transactional ones.
I agree with you, right? Like, you need, as you said, to give value to the other. It's not about taking advantage to other people. Jennifer, in Canada, I have learned also that when you're looking for a job, it's important not to be shy. So you need to understand that you will have to approach strangers, even on LinkedIn. I want to ask you, is there any advice you would like to give us when we have to send a message, or would you suggest to send a message to a stranger requesting for, I don't know, like, is there any introduction, any type of message? How long this need to be?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of different opinions about this. You're going to find people who, suggest connecting with individuals right away, sending an introductory message via InMail. I'm an introvert. I don't particularly find network an easy thing for me to do. I have to kind of force myself to do it. And so I found a strategy that just resonates with me and makes it feel a little bit more authentic, rather than just finding someone and immediately trying to connect with them. So what I do is it's a 3-step strategy. I start by following that person. So rather than immediately connecting with them, I'll click, there's a follow option, typically on someone's profile. And the reason I'll select follow first is one, they'll automatically get a notification in their notification feed that says, Jennifer Catello is following you. So it helps build some name recognition. So they see my name for the first time that I'm following them. So I've indicated that I'm interested in what they're doing on LinkedIn, and it's not requiring anything of them. Then what I'll do is I'll go to their feed, and I'll review some of their more recent posts, and I might like it or share or comment. The beauty part of following them is that as they start to post, as they start to engage on LinkedIn, that information is going to come to my daily feed. So it makes it a little easier to kind of follow a number of people all at once. Once I've kind of started to like or comment on their posts or any of the engagement they've had on LinkedIn, then I can find something that I'm curious about. And for me, I'm always led by curiosity. So that's where I feel most authentic in my interactions. So I'll reach out and say, I've been following you for however long, and I noticed that you're really engaged in this, and I also reviewed your profile, and I thought, wow, this is something that I think we could really connect on and discuss further. I'd love to connect with you. So after that, then I feel a little bit more comfortable, reaching out and saying, hey, I found this great LinkedIn learning course. I thought you might enjoy it. And I try to offer something. So by sharing, by liking, by commenting on their post, by offering something of value, I'm trying to give before I ask them of their time, because I think we could all agree time is the rarest of resources and the one that is depleting the most across our lives. And so when you're asking someone for their time, I think you have to be, at least for me, I feel like it's something really important to ask of someone. And so I want to make sure that I'm asking that of someone who I've given something to. So that's the strategy I typically take. But again, lots of people do very different approaches. I have people who will reach out immediately, and they'll try innovative approaches. They'll use the voice component. So instead of writing something in an email, they'll use the LinkedIn app and they'll record their voice, which the first time someone did that to me, I was immediately intrigued. I was like, oh, they're creative. I'm curious about them. I want to know more. So really just figuring out what works for you and what you're comfortable with, I think is really the key.
That's exactly what I was about to say. You need to feel comfortable, needs to feel natural, right? So if you prefer, as you said, to send, I have never sent that like a voice message, trying to connect to somebody, but maybe that's exactly how the other one is going to say, yes, I want to meet this person. Yeah. I want to ask you, what about the follow up? So let's think that at the end, you are going to meet somebody. You go grab a coffee. This meeting, according to what I have been researching, needs to be a small meeting, 10, probably 15 minutes. Please let us know if this is correct or not. And then how should be that follow-up message that you should send next?
Yeah, I think this is the key. Most people kind of do the first part of networking. They'll reach out, get that conversation, and then it just stops. And so it becomes a transactional relationship. The nurturing of that relationship, that follow-up and that continuation of that relationship is really instrumental for that long-term that I think leads to more opportunity. So there's a couple of strategies that I use. First off, I'll follow up with a message through InMail to thank them for their time, and anything that we discussed. I might, provide additional resources. But then what I'll do is I'll schedule a time. I typically do it once a quarter, just because there's only so much time in a day. But I'll schedule one day and I'll go through all of the people I've connected with, and I'll go to their profiles, and I will, I'll select, their skills. Like I'll give them a skill. I forget what it's called now. I'm totally drawing a blank, but it's kind of like a skill endorsement. So I'll endorse them for communication, or I'll endorse them for something that I've seen them do or engaged with them. It does one of two things. First off, it notifies them. They'll get a notification that says, Jennifer Catello has endorsed you for these skills. It'll bring your name up again, so that name recognition becomes important, because the more people you start to do this with, especially with people who are in positions where they're constantly networking, you want to keep your name top of mind. And then I might, recommend them, send a recommendation depending on, again, the relationship, but really try to use LinkedIn and some of the functionality within LinkedIn to reinforce and nurture those relationships. I might also tag them in a post, in a couple of months. I'll highlight, I typically set up, I'm very, Excel oriented. So I'll set up categories of, what are people's interests? What do I know about them? And if something pops up on LinkedIn, I'll tag them on that post to let them know, ask them if they're interested. So really just trying to keep a schedule. If, at least for me, if it's not scheduled, I don't get it done. So having a very clear schedule and having a clear directive on making sure that I'm going to continue to build those relationships, check in, and really just checking in. I like to do it once a quarter. It makes it so that you have additional information you can kind of chat about over that period of time.
Jennifer, I want to ask you about the mistakes. Is there any mistake you have seen that some people are, it's very frequent, people are doing while they are trying to do networking using LinkedIn?
I think there are two things that typically stand out. And I don't know necessarily that they're mistakes. I just think that they're missed opportunities. The first one is if you do decide to connect with someone and you don't include a message, that's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity for you to have a voice. So for me, it's really not necessarily about the message itself, but it's really about your story and your opportunity to tell a piece of your story, which will intrigue or interest someone. The second one is people will reach out and immediately ask, can you recommend me to LinkedIn? Or can you give me a recommendation? Or they immediately ask, having never even met me or had any engagement with me at all. And so oftentimes that will go unread or unacknowledged. So I think you're really just being thoughtful and putting yourself in the position of whomever it is that you're trying to connect with, and recognizing that, even if you put yourself out there and you kind of you face that fear, which is sometimes how I feel. It's less about how many people are going to respond and more about what you learn about yourself through that process.
Absolutely. Jennifer, we're coming to the end of this interview. I want to ask you, is there any advice you would like to give to newcomers who are here in Canada and they are just starting to look for a job?
Oh, I mean, I'm not sure I can give much advice. I would say that all newcomers, coming from an immigrant family myself, all newcomers are braver than I have ever been. Fear for me means kind of facing it and doing something in spite of it. And the fact that you uproot yourselves and bring yourselves to a completely different country with different culture and push yourself in a way that I think maybe even you find in yourself was not possible, and you surprise yourselves. I have nothing but total and utter respect for people who push themselves in that way. So don't know that I could give advice except to say, keep pushing yourselves, because clearly you are capable of it. And a place like LinkedIn is a good place to keep pushing yourself.
Absolutely. Jennifer, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and being part of Newcomer New Me.
No, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Our next guest is a very talented professional who knows how to do networking. His name is Mauricio Ospina. He is one of Ontario's most outstanding Hispanic Canadians. Congratulations, Mauricio. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you to the team of HispanoTech. Congratulations.
According to your experience, why is it so important to do networking in Canada?
It's simple. Networking expands our group of contacts. If you are looking for a job or if you are looking to promote your company, you can do so. You can become the friend of a friend that gets recommended for the job, or the person that decides to buy your product, because face-to-face recognition and getting to know who is who is an important step. Whether you are here in Mexico or in Canada or in Colombia, it doesn't matter, it's who you know.
Absolutely. And when we're talking the places where we should be doing networking, is there a specific place you would suggest for us?
Actually, networking, the beautiful thing, we live in Canada, and so everything that you need, you can find it on Google, and then you can act on it. One thing that I advise many immigrants, hundreds of immigrants, I don't know how many throughout the years, it's, if you're looking for a job, the first thing you should do is, okay, look for the events or that are related to your field of interest. Google, as I said, is your best friend, because you can search by events geographically, by sector, and even by type, Google Meets or actual formal events. And actually, you could attend for free some of those events if you use some special tactics that are there for the taking.
Absolutely. Mauricio, is there any advice you can give us before attending this event? Should we do any type of research? I mean, before, right? Like preparing.
Well, once you determine the type of events, you search them, and let's say that you find 2 or 3 that you want to attend. So you already did that work. The second part is you need to have your 30-second elevator pitch. 10 years ago, it was known as 1-minute elevator pitch, but now you have to have 30-second elevator pitch. In other words, in 30 seconds, tell me who you are. You have to have ready, memorized, and I can tell you mine in 10 seconds. International business consultant with the government of Ontario, in charge of the US, and for 20 years, elevating the community, the profile of the Hispanic community. Don't 10, 15 seconds, you say a lot. You also have to have your business cards ready, because you're gonna give them a lot. And you're going to use your both hands to give the cards. I'll talk later about that if you want. Also, if you identified a particular event, you must ensure that you approach the speakers first. You also need to do something that is very important and actually goes in hand with the mind of the North American thinking, which is you develop metrics. You don't just go to an event and say, I'm going to do networking. No, you assess the room, the attendees, and the time allowed for networking. For example, if there are 30 minutes allocated for networking, you can easily talk to 10 people of interest to you, not any 10 people. You can talk to maybe 20, but your goal is 10 people of interest to you, and you should connect at least one person to another so that you actually are seen as an engaging other people. And the most, finally, as important is follow up with everyone and continue doing so every 2 weeks.
Wow. Times where we are coming here and we realize, yeah, it's so important, right? Like to go to these events to introduce ourselves, but it's difficult to start conversations, right? So how to approach a stranger? Do you have any icebreaker that you use?
The icebreaker should be the most direct, and it is really, please allow me to introduce myself. I am here to do business networking. May I ask what you do? And then the other person would immediately say, well, I work for X bank in the international division sector, and I am also in charge of X type of products or companies. And then that gives you an opening to give your 30-second elevator pitch. And then you have a quick conversation. About a minute or so, you can ask more questions to the person, business-related questions. As I said, when you finish, then you can exchange business card. Why with 2 hands? Because it shows more respect for the other person, and the person will understand this person that I'm talking to is taking this very seriously. And then you must let go of the person. Don't continue the conversation for the sake of it, because we are terrible at that. We Latin American people, we engage and corner the poor Canadian or American and until we run out of questions. And that's not the way to do networking. It's 2 or 3 minutes maximum. And then you follow up. And as I said, you make sure that you connect at least one person to another by way of, you know, Cynthia, I just met another person today that you may be interested in meeting. Can I introduce you to this person? and you connect them. And now you and the other person are thinking, well, this Mauricio guy, maybe I already know the person, but he's helping me connect. And that's something very important in this society.
Yeah. Okay, so now talking about Latin American professionals, because you have a Latin American background, I would like to ask you, is there a common mistake, misconception you have seen or experienced that people from Latin America are, like frequently doing?
Well, I would say three things. One, generally, we don't know how to network. We know how to make friends and friendships, but know how to do business networking. That's a totally different thing. And so really it's approaching the other party in a serious professional manner. And pretty much saying, I'm here to do business networking immediately from the get-go. Secondly, generally, we don't have a 30-second elevator pitch ready, memorized, ready to go all the time. And thirdly, we don't tend to read the local news. We read the news from our countries, but we need to read the news from here. Today, I'm wearing a shirt that is like a newspaper, literally it is, because I don't know, it's not a televised interview, but nevertheless, I wanted to convey the message that if you read the local news, then you have way more to talk about it and to connect one idea to another. For example, today, if I am attending a business networking event, and I meet someone that comes from the finance sector, I can easily say, I just read an article today about the amount of money, VC money, venture capital money coming from the US into Canada. We are killing in the technology sector. And that's a good conversation starter to continue on the elevator pitch and to develop and to show that I am aware of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That you are informed on what's going on in the country you are right now, which is Canada. Mauricio, you have given to us many advices, but I want you to pick one more advice that you would like to give us in order for us to improve our networking.
Cynthia, I'll do the follow-up. The follow-up, we are terrible at that. We are terrible actually at that because we don't have a structure. We need a structure when you do follow-up. I often ask people that come to me for help and ideas. I ask them, when was the last time that you saw Nike or Adidas or Facebook when you stopped seeing an ad? And they always tell me, no, I see them everywhere. I see them in Facebook. When I go to a plaza, I see Puma, Adidas, everywhere they are advertising. And so, Cynthia, if that's Puma, Adidas, and IBM, who are you and I not to advertise? And so how do we advertise? By following up every 2 weeks. This is why influencers have blogs and newsletters to make sure that I'm sending something every 2 weeks. I'm still here in business. And so if I meet someone at different events, I want to make sure that maybe today they told me, I'm not looking for anyone at this point. But what happens 2 or 3 days later? What if one of their employees left the company and then now they're not going to contact you? They don't know. They probably forgot about you already. So it's your job, or rather my job, to follow up and say, Cynthia, I met you 10 days ago. I am still looking for an opportunity just in case. Here is my resume and this is my telephone number. And do that regularly until the egg cracks. Persistence always pays off.
Absolutely. You have heard that. Persistence always pays off. Mauricio, I wanna ask you one thing to avoid when doing networking in Canada.
One thing to avoid, spending way too much time with someone and not paying attention to the answers. Also forgetting who you spoke with so that you can later reconnect or find a common thing. Don't ask many questions. Don't focus too much on soccer or on family. The people here know that we care about those things. Many people do, the Canadian as a whole. But in general, that's not of importance to them. They also want to find business opportunities. So if we come with fresh eyes and an open mind, and if we read something of interest to them, maybe already they know it already, maybe better than you, than me. But nevertheless, if you say it, you're coming across on an elevated position. More serious, more professional, more aware of what's going on.
For sure. Mauricio, we're finishing this interview. I want to ask you, as an immigrant, okay, is there any advice, doesn't need to be in a professional level, could be if you want, is there any advice you would like to give to another immigrant?
I think I think of three, Cynthia. One, think what you really want to do in life, even if you have to restart again. Write it up, visualize it, talk about it all day. Tell all your friends, because when you are doing that, you are starting to develop ideas. If you don't do that, if you don't tell anyone, if you keep it for yourself, you're not going to have the same impetus to go and do it. But if you say it, it's like making a promise. You are liable for the promises that you make. So think what it is that you really want to do and visualize, write it, and talk about it. Second, read the media so that you can connect all of those ideas, and slowly they become maybe 100 ideas become 10, 20, or 2. And number three, persevere. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, Cynthia. When I came to Canada, I came with no English and no university education. I was studying dentistry, nothing to do with international business. And I actually had to clean floors for 4 years in Canada because I spoke no English and I had no secondary education. So I had to clean floors. That was my job. And I thought I would stay there. But then I went to a Seneca college. I got applied, even though they told me I couldn't, and I was rejected. I begged for 10 days, a month before the school started. I begged an assistant, and the assistant would tell me, Mauricio, I am just the assistant. Apply next year, improve your English. And I would tell her, no, you're going to help me. You're going to help me every day for 10 days. On day 11, she put me to a classroom and she said, I'm going to do an exam on you. And I don't know who she talked to, but she convinced them this guy has so much potential that I'm going to. And so all the time she asked me the question, she put a stamp and she said, approved, the class starts next week. An assistant, an administrative assistant, not teacher, nothing. Then I actually graduated top of my class, top. I was anyways. And then at Seneca, I developed 32 ideas, things that I wanted to do in life, 32. From reading newspapers and imagining things and visualizing, I reduced them to 12, then 10, then 3. And guess what? I've done them all. The rest is a bonus. Everything I wanted to do, I did it. And finally, my first job, if we have time, 2 minutes. I went to Ryerson University. After that, I worked, and then I went to Ryerson University to get a diploma because I realized I can do this. I can do more than that. So I went to Ryerson to study finance and business management. And about 6 months prior to graduating, I started looking for a job. I selected 10 companies that I saw in the newspaper, and I said, one of these, I'm going to get a job here. I got the job in the very first one. How is it that I got the job? 6 months prior to graduate, I contacted them. No one replied. I decided to knock on the door, literally. A very tall Dutch man opened the door, and he asked me, what do you want? Who are you? And I said, you don't know me, but I'm going to work for you. And he said, look, I don't know who you are. We don't have an appointment, and I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I gave him a piece of paper, and I told him, just give me 10 seconds and read the first page. After that, I'll go if you want. He read it. He opened page number 2. And he asked me, how do you know this? And I said, because I'm not the type of person that you ask, that comes here asking, what do I have to do? No, I'm here to tell you what I can do for you. I came with solutions. We talked 45 minutes. That was a Wednesday. I started on Monday.
Wow.
And so why is that? Because it's a huge difference between someone that says, oh, what do you do in your company versus someone that says, I know that you do A, B, C, D, and I read in the news that you are planning this to do these other things. I can help you doing these tasks. It's a huge difference.
Wow, that's a huge difference. And now Mauricio is being nominated as for the top 25 Canadian Immigrant Awards 2021. Mauricio, this has been an absolutely powerful conversation. Thank you so much. I'm sure many immigrants are going to take advantage from this conversation. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Cynthia. Cheers.
And thank you all of you for being with us today as part of the second episode of Newcomer, New Me. I just want to close this episode reminding you, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So let's continue doing networking. My name is Cynthia Basulto Mejia. Newcomer New Me was brought to you by the Bridge Canada and HispanoTech, and we want to help you integrate in the Canadian labor market. Thank you for being with us today. In our next episode, we are talking about the interview process while you are job searching. So don't miss it. Bye.